things are looking pretty good for the one franchise who has never seen a World Series.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans, and welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter, or whatever they're calling it these days, and on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram, but the best way to get a hold of me is right here on the YouTubes, and put a comment down here on the YouTube site. Hey, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. I know there's a baseball podcast, but holy Toledo, if you are betting against the favored team in the NBA playoffs, congratulations on having enough money to buy a penthouse apartment in San Francisco right now. The Celtics and the Cavaliers are down 0-2. I mean, watch the NBA playoffs, the finals be the Knicks versus the Warriors or something. I don't know. It's banana boats. It's absolutely banana boats. But what are you going to do? But we're talking baseball here. Go to Locked On Celtics, Locked On Knicks, Locked On Pacers, Locked On Cavaliers, Locked On NBA, Locked On Warriors for all your basketball talk, but that's not what I'm doing here. I'm doing my baseball talk, and that's what I do best. Let's go through what the trivia question was. We had a bit of a discussion the other day about the teams that have been dragging their fan bases along, not even without a title, without a single playoff victory. And one of the teams I brought up were the Pittsburgh Pirates, and the Pirates are going to come up later in today's show as well. The question was, who was the last Pirate pitcher to record a postseason save? It's almost a tongue twister. GRT Hughes got it correct. It's Jason Grilli. I think, by the way, GRT Hughes, I think you put too many I's or maybe too many L's. I think it's Grilli, not Girilli. But either way, I it's within an I. It's within the I margin of error. So there you go. By the way, Tube U, who's there, says Knicks and Mets for the championships. Pump the brakes. Although, do you know what? I've been always wrong about the Mets the last couple of years. So who knows? Who knows? Look, I'm the native New Englander, grew up watching Larry Bird and everything. So obviously I'm rooting for the Celtics, but the Knicks winning a championship will be one of those generational moments, and a generational moment that is the sort of thing that the fan base thinks, I never thought I would see this in my lifetime. Now, New York fans had the New York Liberty win a championship from the WNBA earlier, earlier this year. And that's the first New York championship other than Major League Soccer. I'm sorry, everyone who hates me when I say this. I have a hard time calling Major League Soccer a major league because every single player there would jump ship in 3, 2, 1 to be a backup player in the Premier League. It's a minor league. So when you take a look at you take a look at WNBA, you had the Liberty win this year. But it's been a long time since you've had an NFL championship. It's been over a decade. It's been a while since a World Series championship has been won, or a Stanley Cup. And it has been almost, I was a baby. I was an infant the last time the New York Knicks won a championship. And they were basically, at least in the 15 years that I lived in New York City, they were the one unifying team. There were Islander and Ranger and Devil fans who all fought with each other, Giant and Jet fans, Mets and Yankee fans. But there weren't a lot. When I was there were New Jersey Nets. And there weren't a lot of New Jersey Net fans. It seemed like even in New Jersey, I'm throwing tomatoes at me all you want, but everyone in the tri-state area seemed to be a Knicks fan. That was the unifying team. And if the Knicks finally win, that would be a kind of a generational moment. One of those things like when the Red Sox won the World Series, like when the Broncos finally won a Super Bowl, when the Cubs won, when the White Sox won, when the San Francisco Giants won, a few years, when the Washington Nationals won, that then Washington finally has a World Series winner for the first time since 1924, when the Texas Rangers finally won. All these times when you had a championship where they finally, I never thought I'd ever see this happen. Or it happened so long ago, like when you saw the Kansas City Royals win. Those generational moments are just thrilling, absolutely thrilling to see. And it becomes those things that the fan base can say, oh, I can now die in peace. Which brings us to the Seattle Mariners. The city of Seattle for a long time was, I think, trailing only Cleveland in terms of being a cursed city, in terms of none of their teams winning piddly poo. Now, Seattle and Cleveland both got off the proverbial schneid within a year or so of each other when the Seahawks finally won. And then LeBron led the Cavaliers to the championship when down 3-1 to one of the great basketball teams of all time. Now, of course, being true to Seattle and Cleveland karma, immediately pain happened right away after that with the interception at the goal line for the Seattle Seahawks. And then the Cleveland Indians, that's what they were called then, losing Game 7 of the World Series that year in extra innings. And then the Cavaliers getting punched in the mouth a couple of times. It looks like there's going to be another chapter written right now about the Cavs unless they can get their act together. Seattle has had that Seahawk team and the Supersonics team in the 70s, and that's just about not a lot other than that to cheer for. And the Seattle Mariners remain the only franchise to have never even played in a World Series, much less win one. And not only that, they have had the bad luck, the bad fortune of squandering the prime of many MVP, Cy Young and Hall of Fame careers. Ken Griffey Jr.'s prime was in Seattle, where he was teammates with Edgar Martinez's prime and the first prime of Alex Rodriguez and the first prime of Randy Johnson. And Lou Piniella, who's a Hall of Fame worthy manager, was their manager. And throw in Jamie Moyer and Jay Buhner. And that team couldn't win a World Series, couldn't even make it to the World Series. They win 116 games with Ichiro Suzuki being, redefining this, that, and the other thing. And the great peak of Felix Hernandez. And they couldn't even, the closest they've got is twice they've got to Game 6 of the ALCS. And if the Mariners ever win, that is going to be a generational moment. Now, last year, things looked pretty good. It looked pretty freaking good when the Mariners went and they took they were up a 10-game lead on the American League West at one point last year. And things looked like they were going to be, pretty impressive at this point. Let's actually go back. I'm going to baseballreference.com, the single greatest website in the history of the planet Earth. And last year, the Mariners, as managed by Mr. Scott Service, had them up. What was it? They were up. They were 13 games above 500 and 10 games up in the division. And on the 18th day of June. And the Houston Astros looked like they were dead from the neck up. They had the only team that had a winning record in the AL West were the Seattle Mariners. And then the roof caved in. And they couldn't put together a series that they've won. And ultimately, it cost Scott Service's job. They brought in Dan Wilson, and they played well under Wilson, but he 13 games above 500 to even 500 when they canned him. And so we go into this year, a little bit of a clunky start, but then it happened. On April 9th, they played the Seattle Mariners were playing a game against the Houston Astros. And they were down 5-0 in the 8th inning. They were down 5 bagel in the 8th inning. and it just looked like it was going to be another loss. And then Randy Arozarena hit a grand slam, so it was 5-4. But the Astros came up and they got another run. So in the bottom of the ninth, and with one out, the Mariners rallied, and Julio Rodriguez got a game-tying double, and then Randy Arozarena got a bases-loaded walk. It was a wild comeback. And since then, the Seattle Mariners have not lost a series. They swept the Texas Rangers. They took 2 out of 3 from the Cincinnati Reds. They took 2 out of 3 from the Toronto Blue Jays. They took 2 out of 3 from the Boston Red Sox. They took 2 out of 3 from the Marlins. They took both games against the Angels. They won 2 out of 3 against the Texas Rangers. And then after losing a dramatic extra inning game on Tuesday in Sacramento, yesterday they came back with a furious, with a vengeance, with a 3-run ninth inning. And then today they were down 5-0, 5-0 on the verge of losing the series. And then they rallied again. And one of the key players was Tavares, who they just acquired from the Texas Rangers, who wound up getting a big hit, in a game-tying hit in his first game with the Seattle Mariners. Brian Wu pitched great. Rowdy Tellez, it's amazing he only has 5 home runs, because it seems like he hit 5 home runs against the Sacramento A's. And the funny thing is that I was all ready to start doing a post about the Sacramento A's winning that series and pulling to within 1 game of the AL West. And Sacramento, well, and we're not going to be talking about the stadium or any issues like that right now. But you look at this team. You got Cal Raleigh with all of his home runs. You got J.P. Crawford getting big hit after big hit. Rowdy Tellez's stats aren't great, but he seems to be getting a big hit whenever they need it. Randy Arozarena, again, not putting up great stats so far, but he seems to be in the middle of every single rally. Same with Julio Rodriguez. Jorge Polanco is having a terrific year out of the gate. Brian Wu is pitching well. Luis Castillo is pitching fine. Logan Gilbert is pitching fine. Bryce Miller is pitching fine. Not great, but fine. Munoz is having a phenomenal year as their closer. And while they certainly need bullpen help, you have to give Dan Wilson lots of credit. This is a team that is winning series. And in the end, in a airtight American League where there is no super team, there is no dominant team, I don't think a single teams in this entire league win 2 out of 3 all the time. Eventually, Rodriguez and Randy Arozarena are going to play to the back of their baseball cards. But until then, just keep winning the games you're supposed to win. Now, was this Scott Service's fault? I don't know. He's the only manager not named Lou Piniella to lead his team to leave a Mariners team to the postseason. But for whatever reason, it wasn't working with him, and it seems to be working a little better under Dan Wilson. Wilson! But sometimes people are quick to want to pull the ripcord on a manager, but sometimes it's the right thing to do. And I'm never one who relishes someone losing their job. But at the same time, as a viewer wrote me a question, sometimes it might be the right thing to do. Get all the supplies you need from the site made for skilled trades, SupplyHouse. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, SupplyHouse is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from more than 400 top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. If you need help with an order, SupplyHouse offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free TradeMaster program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage, and now's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Hey, the NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. Now, look it, this could be a fun time in the NBA. Will Boston and New York lock antlers for a long series where the defending champs make quick work of them? Will Indiana upset Cleveland? What's going on with OKC? Which players are showing up with the biggest moments? And how would you like to combine live prop bets mid-game based on how the action unfolds? If you got a read on who's heating up, why not back it up with the same game parlay? How could $200 and bonus bets add to excitement if that first $5 bet wins? Now, if you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com, place your first $5 bet, and if it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the National Basketball Association. I'm going to bring up a Big John, who's an everyday Sully listener. And by the way, if you listen to this every day and you post something on the social medias or whatever it is, make sure to put that hashtag everyday Sully. I swear it's not because I'm trying to mine your information. Okay, it sometimes helps me find people writing comments. So you just sort of search everyday Sully, boom, ba-da-da-doom, you got that. There you go. But this is an everyday Sully listener is Big John 08865. Question for you, Sully. Now that we're about 1/3 of the season, we're about a quarter of the way through the season. 1/3 is Memorial Day. Let's not jump the gun too much there, Big John. Who do you think will be the first manager fired? And he actually wrote a little more than that. He wrote, do you think if the Blue Jays were smart, John Schneider would be fired? He should have been seen the door a long time ago. Then he wrote Everyday Sully and let's go Mets. I've been saying for years, John Schneider should be shown the door. And I'm a big believer that they made a big blunder there. I can't stress this enough. I don't relish having people lose their jobs. And I certainly don't relish having having teams move and just shifting people around as if they're just the backs of baseball cards. That being said, John Schneider took over the Blue Jays in 2022, and they did well under him. They were not playing particularly great under Charlie Montoyo. They had a winning record under Montoyo and a lot of talent, but something wasn't working, and they brought in Schneider to be the interim manager, and they did well under him. They went 46-28, and they went to the playoffs, and they lost a humiliating game to the Seattle Mariners, where it was one of the great choke jobs I've ever seen in a potential elimination game. And I remember when I watched that game, I was actually at a high school reunion, and me and a couple of my friends were watching the game during the high school reunion. And when that game was over and the Mariners won, I remember turning to my friend Greg and saying, well, looks like they got a new manager in Toronto. That was in 2022. And I thought it was a no-brainer. I mean, look, Schneider did a fine job keeping the seat warm, but let's get ourselves a major league manager in here. Didn't happen. It didn't happen. And we've seen other teams bring back managers who have had success here or success there. Bob Melvin going over to the Giants. There's a major league manager going somewhere. You got the Schilt, who was, for reasons I still don't understand, let go from St. Louis. He's taken over in San Diego. We've seen, Francona gets recycled. Bruce Bochy gets recycled. We get to see, managers get recycled. And Don Mattingly was already there. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of Don Mattingly as a manager, but he has experience managing both Los Angeles and Miami to the postseason. He's on the payroll. I thought, they're going to hand the car keys to him. And they didn't. And they got to the playoffs in 2023, and they just got thumped by Minnesota. And I thought, okay, well, that's it. All right. They're obviously going to bring someone in. Then last year, with their 88 loss team, they missed the playoffs altogether. And this year, now they're currently playing the Angels. And as I'm recording this, there's no score. But I don't. There's their team. They're in danger of going 16 and 20. Even if they win, they're 17-19. They're completely playing uninspired ball. And I don't understand. This is not like someone who just got the job. Now, here's why I think he's not going to be fired. A lot of pressure has been taken off of him and the Toronto Blue Jays for this year. Why? Because Vladimir Guerrero Jr. signed. I thought this was going to be Shohei Ohtani 2.0 in terms of you have a potential MVP on your team and you're just going to squander it. But the nanosecond that Vladdy Jr. signed the long-term deal to stay with the Toronto Blue Jays until the heat death of the universe, I think that cemented Schneider's rest of his season. Because if they miss the playoffs, well, what are they going to do? They're not, they're not going to lose. Now, I think it's funny. Rocco Baldelli, who got the Twins all the way to the collapse last year, and they've been playing uninspired ball right now. And maybe a shakeup is there because this is, again, a winnable division, and they just look dead from the neck up. Now, I'm not going to say anything about the White Sox. They changed their manager last year, and there you go. I don't think, Joe Espada and the Astros are not exactly playing great baseball right now, but the fact of the matter is they weren't playing great baseball last year at this point. Colorado was terrible. I don't blame Bud Black. I don't think anything's going to happen to him. But there are a couple other teams out there. Something has to happen with Pittsburgh. Something has to happen with Pittsburgh. They have a starting that should be able to be a contender. They have a potential Cy Young Award winner on their team, and they're playing like a team that's destined to lose 100 games. This is Derek Shelton, again, his sixth season as the Pirates manager. Exactly piddly-poo with him as the manager. Now, granted, there have been a lot of, you can't, it's not all his fault, but when you have players, we keep hearing about how talented Brian Hayes is. We keep hearing how talented O'Neal Cruz and Brian Reynolds and all these players who come up, and Joey, and Henry Davis and all these people there, and this great pitching staff. And they're not doing squat with him, and he's been there for 6 years now. Maybe this is when you recycle a Joe Madden or a Buck Showalter. Sniff all you want at Buck Showalter. Every team he goes to, save for the Rangers, goes to the playoffs. And guess what? That Ranger team he won a manager of the year with because he got them at least to contend. Do something there. Shake something up. And shake something up in St. Louis as well. Why is Oliver Marmol being treated like he's freaking Whitey Herzog? Yes, they won the division his first year there, and they haven't done – they don't exactly rebuild right now while playing in a winnable division. And here's another name, which a couple of years removed from a 100-win season. Congratulations. Let's all give him a high five. Brandon Hyde has been handed the cart filled with budding young talent, and they are playing awful baseball. Now, I think Schneider should be fired now, and I think Shelton should be fired now. They've got it. They shouldn't have been brought in. They shouldn't have been brought back. Absolutely, but try something. When an emergency, break glass, and there's Showalter. He's become baseball's Larry Brown. And at least teams play well under him. Teams have played well under Joe Madden, except for the Angels, and they're the Angels. By the way, I'm not saying Ron Washington. This team's not his fault. But those are the players that I think, those are the managers that I think should be on the proverbial hot seat. Again, not that I take pleasure in saying they should fire somebody, but sometimes shake things up. Sometimes it works to shake things up. The Marlins wound up firing Jeff Torborg in the 2003 season, recycled Jack Series for their troubles. The Astros, 2 years later, got rid of Jimmy Williams, should be pronounced Jimmy, only one M, and brought in Phil Gardner. Oh, actually, no, that was 2004. And they got all the way to Game 7 of the NLCS. The next year, they won the pennant. Sometimes shaking it up works. Morgan's Magic in 1988. Sometimes it works. Sometimes you need a change in direction. And for some of these teams, like Baltimore, like Pittsburgh, like Toronto, like St. Louis, this isn't their first year there. Shake it up. Shake it up. Because pretty soon we're going to be entering the second third of the season, and you got to start taking things seriously. Hey, let's hear from our good friends over at Wonderful Pistachios. If you're looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious, crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help you keep feeling fuller longer. Now, I teach during the day, I podcast at night. I've got a dual identity. Sometimes I need a snack. And are you going to get something like a donut or some sort of pastry or something really bad for you? No, get something that's good for you. Now, I like them out of the shells. I like them roasted and lightly salted. Boom, get it in my hand. Boom, get it in my mouth. Boom, get it in my belly. I feel full. I feel refreshed, and I'm not getting empty calories because Wonderful Pistachios, they're a complete protein, providing all 9 essential amino acid. They got a great protein punch, and I love the no shells. Some people like the shells. There's all sorts of flavors for whichever one you like, and it's a great on-the-go snack. So get snacking and get cracking with a snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Today is a bit of a bittersweet what if in baseball history. A lot of you know that I love what ifs in baseball history. And on this day in 1957, Herb Score was hit in the eye off a line drive by Yankee infielder Gil McDougall. It broke his nose and damaged his eye. He missed the remainder of that season, 1957, and was never the same pitcher. And I don't think you understand. If you don't know who Herb Score is, the Cleveland Indians won 100 and I believe it was 110 games. Is that what it was? It was a lot of games in 1954, and they were stunned in the World Series by Willie Mays and the New York Giants. But and they got swept. But the Indians had a team that looked like they could scare the Yankees, and they were the only team other than the Yankees to win a pennant between 1947 and 1958. And Cleveland wound up having that year after where they won 93 games and in really 154 game season. And Herb Score was the rookie of the year where he struck out 245 batters in 227 innings. And the next year he won 20 games, completed 16, threw 5 shutouts, and threw a league-leading 263 strikeouts. He was becoming one of, if not the best pitchers in the American League. And Cleveland had an ace-ity, ace for an already very good team. And 1957, the Yankees were the defending World Series champion going into 1957, but Cleveland was hot on their tails. And Herb Score was lost for the remainder of the season, and he was never the same player. Never. Now, and he wound up coming back in 59, but he changed his delivery because he was gun-shy. Or he came back in 58 as a spot starter reliever, and he changed his pitching style. He was gun-shy. He didn't want to pitch the same way. And 59, when Cleveland was battling the White Sox for the pennant, he was a non-factor and was ironically traded to the White Sox, and he was a mediocre starter in 1960. And basically that was it. He pitched a handful of games in 61 and 62 for Chicago, but that was it. Now, he went on to become a beloved broadcaster in Cleveland and is one of those great figures in Cleveland, beloved by Cleveland fans until he died. He stopped announcing in the 90s, and he passed away in the early 2000s, in 2008. Absolutely beloved, but is a classic example of a what if. He came out of the gate like a superstar, like one of the great pitchers. His first 2 seasons at age 22 and 23, he was, if not the best pitcher in the American League, he was right up there. He was absolutely right up there. They didn't have wins above replacement back then, but he was third in wins above replacement, behind Billy Pierce and Early Wynn, his teammate. Now, if he had stayed healthy and he and Wynn would have been put together just a classic 1-2 punch in the rotation, maybe Cleveland wins a couple more World Series, a couple more pennants. Maybe they win a World Series where they're not waiting since 1958. Maybe they were waiting since the 50s and the early 60s. I don't know. And either he might have been a Hall of Famer. We'll never know. But those kind of what ifs are the things that are absolutely, gut-wrenching. Absolutely gut-wrenching of what could have been with Herb Score's career. Hey, I'm going to give a shout out to someone who was watching us on the live. And it was our good buddy, who's usually Jackson09 when he puts comments on, but he's going by LDM. And he says, appreciate the t-shirt as always. Yeah, I got my autism, but with the Red Sox logo on there. For a reason I usually keep to myself. I love you work with those kids and your stories about D. Some of us really appreciate for folks like yourself. Thanks, buddy. My occupation other than this is I'm a special education teacher at Pasadena High School. And I did talk about D, who's one, that's not his name, but I'm not going to say his real name on a podcast, but I'm just going to call him D. And it's funny you mentioned D. D is one of my students. He's a very sweet young man, soft-spoken young man who is a huge baseball fan, huge Dodger fan, on the spectrum. And he will, when there are day games on, I'll have a day game being projected on one of the walls, and he can go over and watch it from his seat while I'm doing some of the other stuff. And I had today's both. I had the Giants and the Cubs game on, and then I switched it over to Sacramento versus Seattle, and it was just another day where I would hear Sullivan, Giants didn't score. Okay, D, let me know what happens next. So yeah, there you go. Some baseball, especially during lunch, but we had a bit of a relaxing second half of the day, and he really seemed to enjoy watching Sacramento. And Seattle wound up winning that, and he was there for a lot of that rally. That's going to bring us to today's trivia question, which is Seattle related. 4 players have hit 200 home runs or more while wearing a Seattle Mariners uniform. 4 players have hit 200 home runs or more wearing a Mariners uniform. Ken Griffey Jr. is one. Edgar Martinez is another. Jay Buhner is another. Who is the 4th player besides Junior, Edgar, and Jay Buhner to hit 200 home runs in a Seattle Mariner uniform? Put your answer down here in YouTube and follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter and on Instagram. And by the way, thanks so much for making Locked On MLB your first listen. For your second listen, stay right here on this channel and check out all the new Locked On MLB game night, every game, every night, all season long. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB game night here on the Locked On MLB YouTube channel or wherever you get your podcasts. Talking about Mariner fans maybe feeling good about things. Some managers maybe should be on the hot seat. Herb Score maybe would have been an all-time great. But someone who is an all-time great is my student D, who loves his baseball with me. This has been Locked On MLB. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.